Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, friends. Welcome to another episode of the Marketing Your Practice podcast. In today's episode, I'm going to share with you what I did to get out of one of the biggest funks that I think I've ever been in my entire professional career. We'll talk more about that in a moment. But first, Happy New Year. How was your break? Did you get some opportunity for rest, maybe a bit of reflection, some time with your family and friends? I hope you did. Two things. First of all, thanks so much for listening to the Marketing Your Practice podcast for 2021. I've got huge plans for us for this year. I've already got some great guests lined up. My focus is very much on helping you to improve your impact, your influence, and your income, have more reach for 2021. And the second thing too is I want to also just take this opportunity now to wish you and your family a year full of growth and love and health and prosperity, all those great things as well. So the funk, what happened as well? Normally, this time of the year, the beginning of any year, I'm itching with excitement. I can't wait to get back into practice. So for those of you that are in the Northern Hemisphere, so this is our summertime, so we normally have a big break. So along with Christmas and the New Year, I head away camping with my family. So usually by the end of a couple of weeks, I'm really ready to get back into work. I love my work. I'm excited to get back and do this kind of stuff, but I'm also really excited to see my patients. But I noticed that this year that enthusiasm wasn't quite the same. In fact, the night before I started work on the Tuesday there too, I could kind of sense this feeling of unease in my stomach. The next morning when the alarm woke me up, that was concern, because normally the alarm doesn't wake me up. Normally I'm awake well before the alarm is. And I found myself doing something I don't usually do, and that was hitting the snooze button. So I had to get myself out of bed. On the drive into work that morning, I'm normally bubbly. I'm pretty excited. I've been taking my daughter to work with me. She's been my CA for the last little while there too. But instead of us kind of chatting and laughing like we normally do, again, there was this real sense of kind of heaviness that was with me as well. And I couldn't quite work out what it was. I just felt anxious and stressed and not all that happy. I felt kind of overwhelmed as well. I got into work and I looked at my appointment book, and instead of my appointment book, because it was busy all morning, I think I didn't have a space. I had 5 flat out hours of adjusting. And instead of that feeling really great about the lives that I would get to change, it felt like, oh my God, here's what I felt. I felt like kind of, what's the point? What's the point of all of this too? And if I backtrack a little and I start to think about where this all started, is that for many of us, myself included, I was really excited this is an understatement, I was really excited to put 2020 behind me. And the thought of, it's so silly, because it's like 2021 is going to be all different. So just because it ticked over from the end of December to start of January, then things were magically going to be different. And they weren't, certainly not here in Melbourne, Australia. We were away camping. I got 5 days into what was meant to be 2 weeks holiday, and then all of a sudden they closed the borders. And so we had 6 hours to race back to get over the border, or we would have to quarantine for 2 weeks. So we raced back, and part of that racing back meant that we sat in a queue for 6 hours. It took us 6 hours to travel less than 20 kilometers. So for those of you that are US based, 12 miles we covered in 6 hours. So we began quite excited as a family. We were playing kind of hooky and quoits and stuff on the side of the road, but then it just, everyone just started to get super cranky. It then meant when we got home, we had to do a COVID test. And not that that was a big deal at all, but I did have to do it on my birthday. And again, the lines for the COVID test was 5 hours. So I had 5 hours wait for a COVID test. That wasn't a fun way to spend my birthday. And it was negative. So added on top of that too, the day after all of that, I went for a run. I fell over. Like, when was the last time you fell over? Like, who falls over as an adult? I tripped on a little bit of kind of pavement there and sprained my wrist, took all the skin off my knees and elbows and stuff like that too. And so what was this sense of just funk was building. I was super angry that we had to cut my holiday short. On top of that, I had a big fight with my sister and my mum and dad just about this whole COVID business as well. So that really didn't feel great. also. And then I'm starting to hear the news about some of the shenanigans that's happening over in the States with the stuff that was kind of happening in the Capitol and all those kind of things there too. What it felt like for me at that moment is like the world, talk about drama here as well, the world was heading along at thousands of miles an hour and about to just smash straight into a concrete wall. I felt powerless in all of it there too. And that sense of powerlessness was really what I was feeling. There was overwhelm, yes, but it was really that sense of powerlessness that I was feeling, because I always felt that through the work that I get to do through here and through the work that I get to do with my patients is that part of what I'm doing is making the world a better place. And it kind of felt like there was just no point to it anymore. And I've had lots of conversations with my coaching clients over the last 2 weeks, and many of you are feeling exactly the same. Lots of you aren't, thank goodness, but many of you are feeling this, oh man, here we go again, 2021, what is going to be different from there? Now, I like to get to my practice early each morning. I get there so I can kind of go through and see who I'm going to serve, and it gives me some time beforehand to sit and visualize, breathe, meditate. And this morning here, I was doing all of that, and I was just trying to access some power from it all to kind of shift the funk over to the side. And then an old story came racing into my mind, a fable, metaphor, whatever you want to kind of call it there too, and it changed everything for me. I want to share that story with you this morning because I'm hoping that it might be helpful and powerful for you too in setting yourself up for 2021. Here's the story. The story is about a father and a son who are walking along the beach. And as they're walking along and their bare feet kind of in that beautiful soft sand and water kind of trickling across their toes, they're looking up well in the distance and they can see what looks like an elderly gentleman who appears to almost be kind of dancing on the beach. It's hard to know because he's doing these kind of flamboyant kind of twirls as he's kind of spinning around and he's bending down towards the ground, and they're both really intrigued by what's going on. And as they start to get up a little closer to him, the first thing they notice is that there is starfish all over the beach, literally thousands of them being washed up with each wave that comes in. And these starfish, many of them, because they're stuck on the beach, you can see them, they're starting to dry out, and many of them are already dead. It's, there's a sense of sadness that the two of them are feeling. And it's now that they notice as they get close enough to this old man that what he's actually doing is he's bending down, he's grabbing the starfish and he's throwing them as hard as he possibly can right back out into the water again. But it seems pointless because for every starfish that he picks up and throws, there seems to be 10, 15 more that get washed up in the next wave. Eventually they get up to the man and the father says to him, he says, why are you doing this? What's the point of it all? For every starfish that you pick up, there's 15, 20 more that get washed up onto the shore. Why does this even matter? And with that, the man bent over and he picked up another starfish and he threw it out into the water. And then he turned back to the father and the son and he said, it matters for that one. Sometimes for me, my sense of overwhelm comes because I want to change the world. And this story reminded me that changing the world starts with us changing ourselves, firstly, and then impacting the very person in front of us. And as that story replayed through my mind, it flushed away all the funk from every cell in my body. It rejuvenated my enthusiasm and excitement for the patients that I had to care for that morning and the coaching clients I had that afternoon, and for putting together this very podcast that I have right now. I'm reminded that really what it's about is making a difference for the person in front of us. This then got me thinking about and reminded me again of Viktor Frankl's book, Man's Search for Meaning. Now, if you haven't read Viktor Frankl's book, it's one that I like to read every few years, and I'm going to read it again now. I've got it back in my list there. But it tells the story of his survival through the Holocaust, arguably one of the most horrific experiences that mankind has ever pushed on itself. And he talks about how he was able to create meaning and purpose and passion in a situation where he had very little control. In fact, he has a great quote that comes from it that goes like this. He says, when we're no longer able to change a situation, we're challenged to change ourselves. For me at the moment, with everything that's going on in the world, so much of what's happening seems to be beyond my ability to impact, outside my pay grade, so to speak, there too. And when I focus and when I was focused on that, it led to a sense of impotence and powerlessness that ultimately led in frustration, anxiety, and depression. That's kind of really where it was heading from there as well. And the moment that I shifted back to picking up that one starfish and focusing on making a difference to that, then it's all changed for me. My hope in sharing this episode with you is to remind you of just how important you are and how important the role is that you have in your community. It's one of the reasons why I love so much dealing with chiropractors and naturopaths, natural health practitioners from around the globe, because I really believe that we have a message that the world needs to hear more now than ever about the real truth of where health comes from, where happiness comes from, the importance of love and connection, and all those things can be brought back to the conversations that we're having with patients about their health as well. I wanted to remind you right now on behalf of the Marketing Your Practice podcast, on behalf of myself, and I wanted to, no, actually not remind you, I wanted to thank you for all that you did last year to help to serve your community, and all that you will continue to do this year to serve the community as well. And remember, remind you that your community really does desperately need you right now. And whilst it might feel at times the work that you do might not matter on a global scale, it does matter for the person that's in front of you right now. Happy New Year. Happy 2021. As I mentioned beforehand, I wish you and your family this year a year of love and prosperity and growth as well. Until next time, as I said, thanks for all that you do. Keep saving lives. Bye. If you enjoyed listening to this podcast, you have to come and check out the Community Influencer Program. It's my monthly coaching program where we take all this material and I'll work one-on-one with you to apply, implement, systematize, and help guide you and your practice to the next level. Now you can join me on over at adiomedia.com/join. That's adiomedia.com/join. I'd love to see you in there.